Alright, let's talk about Sadako. Since her release in about March of this year, it's been generally agreed on she's pretty weak compared to other killers. And this hasn't really changed. After seeing the recent patch notes for the mid-chapter, containing basically no real changes to killers and perks that could potentially help her, more of anything, the anti-slugging changes are more likely to hurt her than help her. So I kind of wanted to just talk about how weak she is and try and bring like some bit more focus to the state she's in. Encourage discussion to see if we can like try and convince behavior to give her the love she deserves. She's such a recent killer that seeing her be really bad compared to even just uh, base killers from 2016 just feels bad, especially for a licensed killer, right? That you can't even get for free, you have to put money into. So, yeah, that's the purpose of this video, at least. And if you're not convinced, maybe this video will. If not, for free, I'll discuss this in the comments if you want. Alright, so let's start off. I was going to preface this with two things. One, this isn't completely trashing on Sadako. Sadako can still definitely win games. If you're really good at Sadako, you can probably consistently get 3 or 4 Ks most of the time, especially if you play to your absolute best. But that's not the focus. This is focused on the average player. So pretty decent, but never the best. Obviously going to make a few mistakes here and there. And about the general how fun it is to play her as well. Secondly, this isn't like an attack video or anything like that, or behavior. I don't think they've done like anything wrong, otherwise it'd take kind of too long to buff her. Uh, I don't want like be like harassing or anything. If that's like, I don't think it'll come across that way. But I just want to make sure. I want to see buffs to her. Also, I think her design is great. It sticks to the original pretty well. Her power is very thematic. I just think it's kind of weak, so keep that in mind. Alright, so we'll start off by going over the pros of her. So things she actually has going for her, just so we can like compare the good to the bad sort of way. We'll start off firstly with a teleport. Teleport's always good to have. It applies some map pressure, and it's not limited to something like gens like the Nightmare is. You can teleport to a TV that always comes on, so it's always there. Even if all the gens are powered, it's there in the end game if there's some end game shenanigans going on, or that sort of build you got. So it's not limited in that way. That's always good to have. Dredge, Nightmare, having a teleport, you're never going to complain about. Uh, that's basically it for the teleport. Next is the instant mori that she has, where basically when somebody reaches full condemned, she can mori them if she downs them, despite any hook stage. So that's pretty good, because if you played Executioner, aka Pyramid Head, he needs to cage/hook twice before he can mori, and if you played Myers, he needs to bring add-ons for it. So having this built-in mori system that works on any hook stage is pretty good. The only other killer you can really compare it to is Bobby the Pig, but then you kind of pushing people off, getting a trap off their head. So uh, this one kind of works a little bit better, but it's also less consistent. So keep that in mind. And then last thing to really mention is her stealth. It's pretty good. She could come in and out of it way quicker than Wraith can, and it's quieter. And also, after manifesting, she has a small window of continued invisibility flickering where she can use it to mind game. So, if you're somebody who likes mind gaming or decent at it, you can use this sort of window of invincibility flickering to kind of mind game the survivors and probably get a hit. And not any other killers can actually do this, especially on low loops, right? Most mind games come from tool loops or indoor maps for most killers, whereas Sadako can pretty much mind game almost anywhere with his ability, so that's an added benefit too. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the pros really end. She doesn't really have anything more over the average killer. She still has the M1 people, and most of her pros do have downsides. For example, the teleport. Love a good teleport. Bad news is, if she teleports, that TV takes 100 seconds or just under 2 minutes to come back up, which is an insanely long amount of time. Especially if you consider somebody like Dredge, who came out right after her, uh, doesn't have this limitation at all. Uh, the Dredge can teleport to any locker on the map, which can sometimes be a little bit of a downside, because sometimes there's some maps that don't have lockers in good places, but these are few and far in between. But he can teleport. I don't know how long. I haven't looked it up. I'm sorry, but I should have. But it's it's like maybe 18 seconds, I think, off the top of my head. And he can go back to the last teleport, and he can also he can do it 3 times by default through the map. So if he goes to one and doesn't see anything happening there, he can go teleport somewhere else and not wait any longer, which is always good. But Sadako has to wait just under 2 minutes to go back to that same TV, which is an insanely long time. And there's no reason for it to be this long. There's no real way to reduce it as well outside of add-ons. If you're unaware, uh, some powers in this game have short cooldowns. For example, Wesker, his power comes up faster the more people are that are infected. Uh, so it doesn't have anything like that. It's like not like, oh, for every condemned state it's reduced. No, it's always 100 seconds without add-ons, and it's just it doesn't make sense to be so long. And it doesn't make sense that if survivors take a tape and turn off a TV, it has a smaller cooldown. Countering her power is less beneficial than just letting her use it, which makes zero sense if you ask me. I mean, I kind of get why they do as well, because you don't get to teleport alongside it, but the counter should always be beneficial to the survivor if the survivor's doing it. It's counterplay. It should be something that hinders uh, the killer, right? Like locking. I'm going to bring up Dredge a lot. I'm sorry. Like locking lockers as against the Dredge. If you do that well, can really cause a lot of hindrance to give you more time to escape if he teleports near you as well. Uh, Nobody's going to be like, oh, you shouldn't lock because it takes less time for him to come out if it's locked. Like, nobody would do that, right? So the same applies here. Nobody's going to be turning off TVs if it takes less time for it to turn back on, as you can just then teleport to it. Especially if this is because it always spawns near a gen. If she sees that there's no TV, no gen, she can probably assume that that gen's being worked on. Keep an eye on it, or just go to it, and then you can put pressure on that gen. Because it's 60 seconds as well. Even if she doesn't decide to go to it instantly, the moment that TV comes back on, she could go to it, and the gen probably hasn't been done unless there's like 3 people on it. Because I'm pretty sure even with 2 people, it's still like 80 seconds or maybe like 70 something. Which is probably not the most efficient, but it's kind of just framing this on how long and short it is compared. Like if she teleports to it and she doesn't get enough of pressure, or there's multiple people there and one goes back to it, she can't teleport again to put pressure on that gen again before it finishes. Uh, so it kind of just leaves this situation where there isn't reason to counter her power, uh, unless you, I don't know, trying to have fun or you're close to condemned. But that kind of leads into the second part where condemned isn't good enough of a pressure. Survivors, if you don't know, when Sadako teleports within 16 meters, any survivor gets 1 condemned stack. 7 condemned stacks leaves them fully condemned, and if they go down, they can be insta-mollied. The problem with this is the fact that, once again, most of the TVs are near gens, all of them usually. And secondly, uh, the cooldown doesn't come up fast enough, so it's not really important enough to worry about this until deep into the game. Like most of the times when I'm facing Sadako, assuming she isn't bringing like a force condemn build, which is still hard to pull off, by the way. I've never had to worry about turn off a TV, and if I had to, it's usually been when there's one or even zero gens left to do, which is uh, pretty sad because why I don't touch TVs, why would I? Like I said earlier. Well, I'll go back onto that. So yeah, the easiest way for condemn to be applied is for a survivor to get a tape and then turn off a bunch of TVs. But there's no reason to do this, so it makes it just really bad pressure. It's also you can't pressure multiple survivors with this as well, unless it's working on the same gen. But at that point, most people split up, or like there's two on one gen and then two on another, or something like that. It's not. This isn't going to be happening frequently, and once again, the cooldown comes to matter. This is going to be a big point. The cooldown, so you're only going to hit them once with that, and then it might split up, or you chase one, etc. You know. And the second part of this that makes this difficult is some maps have terrible TV placement. I was playing a match the other day on Father Campbell's Chapel. The middle gen on the second floor of the chapel has no TV anywhere near it. This turns the gen that's already kind of difficult to pressure because it's upstairs out the way, and if you try to put pressure on it, uh, they can kind of see you coming, even as a stealth character, like Sadako, because she has like this lullaby. We'll go over that in a second. But yeah, it's already one to difficult to pressure on any killer, and the fact that there's no TV near it, or at least when I played on it, didn't. I don't know if it can spawn there. I don't think it can, because out of all times I played it, I don't think I've ever seen one spawn there. So you can't really condemn anybody when they're in that building, and that building's a pretty good loop, all things considered. So it does make it a very difficult place to condemn for the Sadako. So TV placement definitely needs to be improved, but we'll go over that. I think another thing that we could bring to this is the fact that condemn on its own doesn't really do anything other than, you know, kind of change target. If somebody gets maxed condemned, the Sadako is likely to go for them. But if they're fully healed, you still have to do general usual chase with them. And that's assuming you decide to pay attention to them. You might be mid chase, or might have just got somebody down. So you see where that person is, and you're like, okay, I'll hook this person. And by the time you try and done the hooking, the killer instinct that you get is gone. And you usually guessing which TV they're going for. Sometimes you could be wrong, or sometimes they've even already got there. There's nothing beneficial to the condemned unless you can down them, which is already pretty hard to do as a Sadako. Another fact on this is, even if you do find that person before they put the tape in the TV, you cannot really do much to prevent them from actually putting the tape away. So if they're not on death hook, the best thing for the survivor to do is literally to like run to the TV, put the tape in, and just take them down, because at least then they're not mauled, they're not killed, they're still in the game. When if you go to the TV they're at and hit them, and then they start to put the TV away, the tape away, you cannot like prevent that. They will put it away before you have recovered from the hit. If I remember correctly, a hit cooldown is 2.8 seconds, but the TV away is 2 seconds. So they still have 0.8 to create a little distance after being hit and putting the tape away. The only way to really counter this is 7 stacks to save the best for last, and you know that's quite a huge amount of stacks. If you're hitting the obsession, you're obviously not going to have these 7 stacks. So it's kind of it's not that great, being honest. Sorry, I kind of went off a brain fart there, but you get what I'm saying, right? You know, you're not going to be it's very hard to prevent somebody from putting a tape away unless they're in a really bad position already. So being condemned isn't the hindrance it should be. Lastly, it's kind of like a sort of conclusion or summary of all that. It's basically that power isn't doing much in terms of map pressure or looping pressure, given how basically a weakness in both areas that most killers usually have some benefit to. So, Dredge has his remnant that can be used as a sort of anti-loop to shorten loops, especially on short loops or long loops if you use it well. I know he also has his Cosmap Teleport, which is a lot more consistent than Sadako's, so that's sort of a map pressure. Same with like, I guess you could even bring Freddy into this, where he's got the teleport to gens, which pretty much forces pushes him off no matter what. And he also has his Dream Snares, which hinder in a loop, which can turn really good loops into slightly worse ones, or ones where they have to like drop the pallet earlier to get value from a chase earlier. The problem with obviously Sadako, she doesn't have anything really like this. Condemn doesn't really give anything. Her power is non-existent in loops, and her map pressure is weak because, of course, the cooldown once again. Uh, you can kind of counteract this weakness with a sort of hit and run strategy. So, hitting somebody, injured them, forcing them to find somebody else to heal them. Or you could go for the extreme route and slug them as well. So down them, go for somebody else and slug them too. And the problem, with, of course, with this hit and run strategy these days is that it's basically been dead since Circle of Healing was released, which was before Sadako, so she's never had a really chance to do this. Most matches you can't go into these days will have at least one Circle of Healing, if not multiple. So yeah, that's not really going to be a thing you can do anymore. In majority of matches, like even I'm guilty of bringing a Circle of Healing because it's just so good. And with the recent potential changes for anti-slugging, I know it's not coming in the next patch, but I still think it's worth mentioning. The anti-slugging changes, even the extreme tactic of slugging won't be viable, which kind of leaves Sadako in a even worse position, and I already think she's probably the worst killer in the game, I gotta be honest. And it doesn't leave much for Sadako at all. You kind of leaving in the situation where you want the shortest chases possible every single time, and you can't realistically do that. Just against decent survivors, they're gonna loop you for at least a couple of minutes, and like that, you're probably gonna hear the gens popping up in the distance, and not much you can do about it. And like all this put together, you kind of have a killer who basically has to try lot harder to get the same results as other killers. Obviously, you can compare this to the streams like Nurse, who obviously is like downing people left, right, and center constantly because she's so strong. But you can also compare this to like the average killer. Maybe say, my best experience would be say Wesker, because that's the person I play the most. Uh, most matches, if I'm trying a little hard, I'll get 3 kills. If I'm against really good survivors, maybe only just 2. Some matches get 4. Some matches I have 0k, and that's fine. That's just me playing badly. I'm understanding that. But I never feel like it's the point of the killer is weak. I always feel like it's on my side. When I'm playing Sadako and I'm tryharding and I still lose because it's just the survivors are so coordinated. Like I was playing the earlier this week, and I played 3 matches in a row, which had really good survivors. One was a 4-man survivor friends. One was 2-man, 2-man, and one was just 4 solos who were just really good put together. They were protecting each other from hits. They were just really working well together and without even communication. So they were like really good survivors, and nothing against them. I quit in that last one after about 5 minutes because I was just like, I don't want to play this killer anymore. I was like, you know what, she's not fun. I don't want to try hard for the 3rd time in a row because I was on stream, and I was sort of even going to chat a little bit, and I just wasn't having fun with it at all. So I just quit and I went back to play Wesker. And it felt bad to do that, but it was for the best of my goddamn mental health at that time because I was just stressed out playing Sadako. I just wasn't having fun. Uh, it's just it's just not fun to play because you're always trying hard. And if you love trying hard and you really think you can do really well with Sadako, go for it. But you have to ask, if somebody's tryharding, why would you play Sadako over something like Blight or Nurse, who can pretty easily get 3 kills, which most people will consider a win, uh, with most perks, regardless, right? If you go base kit Blight, base kit Nurse, you could, if you're good at them, you can probably still get 3 or 4 Ks most matches. With Sadako, I don't think you could potentially ever do that on a consistent basis. And it's also currently used to a situation where there isn't much perk variety when you're playing Sadako. It just isn't viable to bring subpar perks because you're already playing a subpar killer, if that makes sense. So you kind of bring in the best perk she has, which is probably like 2 or 3 different sorts of builds. But if you go to somebody like Nurse, you got like 2 try hard builds, but you could probably bring some fun builds or some like weird builds, and you could probably still have a good time, a fun time, and still probably get some wins out of it as well. With Sadako, if you're trying to bring something fun, you're accepting you're probably getting 0 or 1K, and you're probably getting that 1K from camping into the end game, which isn't that fun. It's depressing to look at. So let's kind of look at what we can do about this. What can be done, what buffs can be in a better scenario. If you've been in this community for a while, you've probably seen some. I'll mention some of these here. Some I think I came up with myself, but they've probably been mentioned before. This is a very discussed topic. What we can be done about Sadako, and what make her a bit more fun and better for basically everybody. Right, so first, Condemned. It needs to be a bit more frightening, it needs to be a bit more consistent, and it needs to be a bit more of a hindrance to Survivor. So how do we do that? Firstly, it's too hard to apply, and it's obviously too weak at max game. So let's look at the first part where it's too hard to apply. What can we do to make it apply more? And one idea is to make it passively build outside of chases from doing certain activities. So, doing a gen near an active TV would, one, build the passive condemned, and secondly, give another reason to turn off that TV, because the TVs are always near gens. Uh, Basically, it's either take the condemned or do the tape, uh, and then not build the condemned, but have to get rid of the tape first, if that makes sense. Or do the gen, then get rid of the tape. Make a sense that make it like a choice on the survivors on how to counter it. Second, you could do is when unhooking somebody who's already built some condemned. So if somebody's got 3 stacks. If you unhook them, you get like half a stack yourself, or maybe a full stack. The add-on, which makes it so when you heal somebody who's condemned, it's supposed to condemn to you. Make that built in. You could do something like that. Another issue is that when it's applied, it doesn't really do anything impactful unless you can down them. So sort of to change this would be a sort of debuff that could help her in like chases or map pressure. I feel like a lot of people suggest exposed when they're maxed. I'd kind of disagree with this because I feel like it make the insta more a bit too easy, especially if they decide to increase the condemned spread and the like a passive build up. If they decide to go that route, and also it feels like a bandage than an actual proper fix to a weak killer. Personally, I'd like to see something like a building hindered, so you could have like a percentage per condemn stack. So the more you have it, the worse it gets. Or you could do like at max condemned, there's a darkened effect where you're oblivious and you simply got like dark effect by dredge, or maybe like a static TV field, which is very hard to see past. Something you could do like that. You could also slow gen speeds or healing speeds per condemn stack or something like that. Well, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of debuffs in the game. I'm not going to go through them all, but something like a building debuff that gets worse and worse the further in condemn she gets would be a lot beneficial. Um, All right, last thing I want to mention is I like TVs being more frequent. If you compare it to something like Nightmare, whose teleport comes up more frequently, the more people in the dream world. Sadako doesn't really have anything like that, so maybe we want to add something like every condemned stack could reduce the cooldown. I would also like to see a shorter base cooldown, and I would also like to see it if it was like either shorter for, to teleport than survivors turn off a TV, or the same length. So it doesn't matter which one does. At this point, it doesn't really make sense for survivors to turn off TV. So you kind of want to encourage survivors to actually pay attention to these TVs and work on these tapes and do secondary objectives, which would create map pressure, similar to like Pinhead, who has a box. Every like 40 seconds, it will reach max and then start a chain hunt. So you kind of want something where at least at least one survivor is not on a gen. Uh, Assuming you've got one in a chase, you want one doing like a secondary objective and then two on a gen. This sounds like a balanced, fair situation to be in. That's how kind of like Cenobite works, and I think it would be pretty decent to have. And you put these on top of some other buffs, and I think we got a really strong killer. Uh, so yeah, that's pretty much everything to go over. I could have gone into a lot more detail, but I could have been here for about 6 hours if I wanted to. I kind of just wanted to do sort of a bit of an overview on what makes her weak, what we could see for buffs, and kind of like show people who may not be convinced how frustrating it can be from the killer perspective, especially if you're like a survivor main or something. I don't want her to be super OP. I don't want her being insta mori everybody every match. It just right now, she doesn't really have a power. Is one way to put it. She can teleport to a TV every 100 seconds, which is pretty okay, but map wise and in chase, she doesn't really have much going for her, and I think she needs some real changes to feel worth it. Otherwise, right now she's kind of just a perk bot sort of thing. Like people love Call to Buy, doctors love Merciless Storm. A lot of people love the Scourge Hook that she has, which shows auras. They're all really good perks, but nobody wants to play Sadako right now, which is a shame because I really think she's a really cool killer, and I really think she has that potential to be really fun to play with a few changes. So yeah, I think I've covered everything I wanted to. If I missed anything or you just disagree, feel free to uh, discuss below, and I'll happily talk back. I'd love to talk about this more, actually, to be honest. But I don't want to be here for 6 hours, like I said. So, but yeah, other than that, thanks for talking with me and listening, I guess. So see you guys soon. Last thing I want to mention, really, is I want to see the TVs uh, be usable more frequently. You look at Nightmare, you look at Dredge, they can teleport pretty frequently, and they both have benefits to reduce their power cooldown as well. The Nightmare has more people in Dream World, and Dredge doesn't have anything. I'm a liar. Let's try that again.